Welcome back. We're continuing our discussion about the relationship between growing corn and producing beef. We've got a set of new guests joining us now, and I'm excited to introduce them to you. First is Brandon Hunnicutt. He's a Nebraska farmer who also serves on the board of the National Corn Growers Association. We're also joined by Cassie Aherin, project manager of the Eco-system Services Market Consortium. Alongside Cassie is Jarad Drinnin, who manages Drinnin Feedlots, our host for today's program. You know, we hear a lot about soil health these days, and I'm curious from a corn producer's standpoint, what have corn growers done to improve soil health?
You know, when you look back at the last 20 or 30 years, you know, there's been a lot of changes in technology, whether we look at GMOs or whether we look at equipment technology that has allowed us to produce more with less, you know, using less water, using less fertilizer, reducing our greenhouse gas emissions over the years. That we just began to see what we can do in the future and really how we can maximize our yield potential and minimize soil health destruction and really improve the soil around us.
Mm-hmm. And Jarad, beef cattle producers can actually play a role in helping corn farmers improve soil health, is that right?
Yeah, you know, we can supply manure as fertilizer, which adds a lot of organic matter and humus to the soil and makes the soil tilth better. And it's a lot of micronutrients that come from the manure that really help out the crops.
So what are the tools available that producers have to really assess and help measure soil health?
You know, as we've looked over time, you know, as we mentioned technology, we're beginning to understand just how we can measure things. You know, there's soil tests out there to be able to figure out what's going on, even more so than what we used to do, just measuring NP and K, you know, just the basics of what we need. And now let's really dig into what's going on out there. Then as you see partnerships with different groups out there, that National Corn has been very, very vital in helping get going. And also we're very glad to be partners in, whether it's groups like Soil Health Partnership, Field to Market, or even more recently, more importantly as well, ESMC.
Yeah, and tell us a little bit about your organization, if you wouldn't, Cassie.
Yeah, so ESMC is a consortium of members made up of potential buyers, but as well as commodity groups and producer associations to really bring buyers and sellers, so farmers and ranchers, to the table to sell ecosystem services, which we'll explain in a little bit. But you know, when you talk about tools and resources for producers, for farmers and ranchers, ESMC builds upon those tools and resources to advance conservation efforts and incentivizes producers to utilize more of those tools and advance, you know, and improve soil health on their operations.
So we were talking about sustainability in the last segment, and I'm curious, what's your take on how soil health impacts the whole sustainability of any operation? Jarad?
Well, from like the feed yard standpoint, where we farm also, you can supply the fertilizer to go on your fields that you don't have to go buy synthetic fertilizer. And it's convenient for us because we can get it cleaned out of the pen and we have somewhere to go with it, and even neighbors buy it too, you know, which helps out everybody's kind of bottom line. The better the fertilizer, the better the crop, usually.
Would you have anything to add, Brandon?
You know, as we look at the soil health and we're looking at just the changes in the way we're planting the crop, right? You know, we're using things like no-till, we're using things like strip-till, cover crops, any of those things that will help improve soil tilth, you know, help with water infiltration, holding the fertilizer right where we want it. Because, you know, the last thing we want to do as a corn farmer is to lose a vital resource that we have, a fertilizer. You know, not just because it's costly if we don't have the ability to use manure, but also because, you know, we want to be good environmental stewards and make sure that we're not losing stuff, whether it's into groundwater here in Nebraska, which becomes a big deal, or into surface water, which we know can also be a big deal in other parts of the United States.
Just go ahead, Jarad.
And on the cover crop deal, that goes really well with the feed yard also, because we can use that for grazing calves or weaning calves out on grass and make that, and you have more refuges and stuff like that. It
creates an opportunity, some real complementarity between corn and cattle.
Absolutely.
Very good. There's a lot more to discuss about the relationship between corn and beef and the efforts to become more sustainable. We'll have more from our panel right after this.